Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks, today we're going to take a look at 5 stocks that I think might have big potential for 2025. This is going to be a chart video. Just want to get this out of the way at the front. This is going to be focused on the chart. If you want to look at these companies' financials, what it is that the companies actually do, analyst ratings, so on and so forth, please look that up on your own. What I'm going to talk about here, and this is going to be long enough of a video as it is the chart setup as I see it. Now, could these stocks have a terrible 2025? Yes, of course. Proceed with caution. Many of these are sort of high risk, high reward, but that also means high risk, high level of losing your account balance as well. So please remember that as you sort of make your own decisions based on these charts and the stocks and whatnot. Now we're going to look at GSAT, BTO, SONM, NTLA, and CABA in that order. And for each of them, I put on the chart, as you see here, a green support zone and a red resistance zone. I'm basing that off of previous price action. And we're also going to look at the EMAs for each of these stocks, as well as a quick look at the think or swim setup to see if there's anything interesting on there. Now I am working off the daily time frame, so if you work off of different time frames, just adjust that accordingly as you do your own research. So GSAT coming down quite hard lately, several red days in a row here. This is like the biggest one, minus almost 7.5, but it is coming into a potential buy zone that I see, which is situated around like 150 or so here, and then comes through to about 135 or so. So if it does dip into that range, I might look to add if the price looks like it's consolidating in that range or bouncing, sort of like a V-shaped recovery in that range. Certainly if it bleeds through it, that would mean that the support was not there this time around, even though it had been previously, and that can also happen. So just know any of these support levels, you're hoping the buyers are stepping in to scoop up shares at a price at which they have previously in the past, or scoop up shares when the price was much cheaper where they previously sold in the past. But that doesn't have to happen, especially if buyers have stepped into there previously and haven't seen a good return on their investment. They might not show up again, and that's when you see stocks sort of falling hard through support levels. Now, if it does get a bounce and it comes up into this range, this is about where I would look to unload. So somewhere around 236 all the way up to like 270. And the way I would typically treat that is to, first of all, of course, see how the stock is reacting as it approaches these levels and as it makes initial contact, and then decide if I want to trim, if I want to hold, looking for some other signal, what have you. But that's the zone at which I would look, to maybe start to make a move. Now, bringing in the EMAs, we do see a bearish crossover of the 8 crossing below the 21 at the moment, and the price action falling below the 34. So appearing as though that 8 is likely to get drawn through the 34 as well. But this is actually a good sign because I'm not in GSAT. I'm looking for it to come in toward this buy zone. And so the more that it can come through and maybe make contact with this 183 EMA and maybe dip a little below it and recover, that would sort of put it right into range of what I'm looking for. So we'll see if that can be the case. Now, in the think or swim set of things, what I'm really focused on here is this lengthy trigger on the TTM squeeze indicator. So do we get a nice bump like we saw back here? Lengthy trigger on the TTM squeeze indicator, and then it fired, and that took the price from, it fired around $1, and it took it up to 274. So that's a good return. Will it have that big of a move this time? I don't know. Also keep in mind, TTM squeeze indicator, you're just looking for an outsized move when it goes from trigger to fire. That outsized move can be to the downside. So just because you're looking for trigger and a fire to produce a big move, that big move does not have to be to the upside. So that's of interest to me there. We'll see if any of that stuff plays out. BTO, my buy zone, or potential support zone, I shouldn't really say buy zone, potential support zone is about 3210 all the way down to about like high 29s, 2985 or so. So pretty big zone there, but I'd be interested to see what it looks like if and when it sort of makes some motion into there. It's putting up a strong wick at the moment, but it has come off the back of several red days and is putting in a lower low than the previous swing when it had, again, like a really steep decline here. So we'll see how that sort of wants to play out. And then the resistance zone that I have up here, 38.85 or so, up to about 41.59. So again, seeing how it reacts when it makes contact with those things. Now, yes, fully bearish formation on the short-term EMAs. Again, that's good news for me because I'm looking to pick up shares potentially down here. And just keep in mind, if a stock gets into this green box, it's not something where I'm going to say, I'm going to start buying the minute it's in the green box. No, I want to see what it's doing when it gets into there. If it's looking like it has the potential to consolidate or V-shaped recovery, something along those lines, then I may start accumulating. But it could very well just plummet through this zone as well. So like I discussed on GSAT. But the 183, again, right in line with that zone, so could be a nice opportunity depending on how things play out there. Think or swim side of things, what are we on? BTO. Let's take a look. So trigger and fire back here on the TTM squeeze indicator had set things nicely into motion. It is at the moment fallen below the put trigger for January, so we'll see if that sort of results in this -1 ATR getting played out, which would bring it down to 31.33. That's this level here. If that's the case, we're nicely within the range here, right? 30, like high 31s. Yeah, we're just sort of really getting into the support box. So that would be a-okay with me. But again, I'm not just buying the minute it touches that green box. I want to see what it's doing when it gets in there. SONM starting to wick up as the day goes on. Had a big green day yesterday as well, 12%. This is one of the cheaper stocks on the list here, 373. I have a zone in here that is, let's call it about 282 down to about 256 or so. And then the resistance level, well, I'll do it from the bottom up for you, about 473 up to about 618. So a really big range there, but I wanted to give myself space because space on both ends, but I do prefer sort of a tighter support box and a larger resistance box because I want to be able to give myself time to react, trim if I want to, and give myself very little time to make a decision at the buy zone because I want it to either be obvious or not talk myself into it. EMAs wise, this is quite different than the other ones we're looking at. So we are getting bullish crossovers here, but we are also coming in closer to the 183 EMA. So my question would be, can either this bullish push fail, right? Like this one failed, bullish crossover, which failed, came down and made basically relatively the same lows as it had been prior to that swing. So does that happen again? Or do we get a push to the 183, strong rejection off of it, and maybe put in some lower lows and get ourselves into this range? If not, then I just don't get in, or I at least don't get in based off of this setup. Maybe there's other reasons to get in, but this would sort of put the price into that range anyway. So we'll see, but it is sort of having a strong push at the moment, but as we know, those things can be fleeting and fail. So SONM. All right, so I wouldn't give much credence to these up and down candles here, but we have a super long trigger here on the TTM squeeze indicator. So when that fires, do we get a really big move? This makes me, if it is going to move off of this TTM squeeze indicator, I very well may miss it because it might not dip into this range. It might sort of rocket. If so, you heard it here. Maybe not first, but you heard it here. And maybe that's helpful for some folks that want to buy in based on other criteria. You know, for SONM in particular, I typically really like these setups where short-term EMAs are crossing over in a bullish formation as it's approaching the 183, and you know, maybe sort of accumulating as it approaches that. I talked about this in my EMA trend reversal video, which will be coming out in a week or so, and so you know, you can look for that. But I do typically like this setup as it is. So there's a secondary opportunity here if I end up wanting to play SONM, which might work well if it does start to just sort of boom off this TTM squeeze indicator. Now, the other option is this could fire and nothing could happen. It could stay relatively flat, or it could fire and it does get a big move to the downside, right? And if it gets a big move to the downside, as long as it stays within this box, maybe it gives it an opportunity to have a pretty big dip here. I could dip like $1, which for a stock of this price is a huge percentage loss. If that's the case, then yeah, maybe we get that outsized move to the downside, gives me an opportunity to get in this range and then sort of see if it can play out well from there. But several opportunities with SONM. It's quite interesting. Now, NTLA, a bit different here. Downtrend resistance is dominant. So we have short-term downtrend resistance here, a longer-term downtrend resistance here, and it is already into this range, but I really want to see what it's doing off of it because I don't feel super comfortable jumping in, even though, you know, it's in the range. It was down over 15% last trading day, and then today you see it's down a little bit, but I mean, you know, that's not going to help it out very much. And then, you know, I really need to see what it's getting here, but it would bust through this box pretty soon, right? 918 is the lower end of this level, and so if it gets down below that, then for me this setup just isn't going to work. If it does and we can get motion, you know, this one is probably really tricky, but if it can get motion through this downtrend resistance and then through this downtrend resistance, you know, the reason I included this was because this is one of the bigger sort of spreads. So, you know, and it is already in the box, which is interesting, but you know, to me this isn't for my own particulars, I'm not looking to jump into this just yet. I want to see some recovery out of this level, or showing some recovery through this level at least. But, you know, so down around 910, and then I have the level up here, 1762, 63, somewhere around there, all the way up to 2357. So huge upside potential if it can move, but this is what the chart looks like. So it's been under a lot of distress for a very long time, and there's probably good reasons for that. And so just be aware that that is also true. 183 we see up here in the resistance zone at the moment, fully bearish formation on the short-term EMAs, of course, so I need to see those start to move, start to flip, and some push through here. So we'll see if that can happen. NTLA over here looking like this. Oh, I'm pretty sure also, before I move on, that this is a biotech. Yeah. So, I mean, this is just sort of the case with biotechs as well, right? Looking to see if there's some like incredibly strong catalyst. So, and these have the potential for that. Now, do they oftentimes just sort of like bleed for a very, very long time and then go bust? Yes, that also happens. But that's why I feel that this, you know, if it's going to, you know, sort of give such a large move, the catalyst is going to have to be there somewhere. So we'll see if that's the case. But here on the Thinkorswim side of things, you know, just sort of situated above the put trigger at the moment. It can't really get to the -1 ATR because that's in oh no, that is positive. I thought that was a negative. -1 ATR at $1.64. So basically that would be a really tough move for the NTLA bulls if that were to happen. But if it does get through the call trigger and gets to the +1 ATR, that's all the way up at 2168. But even to get to that call trigger, it needs to get to 1402. So I mean, you know, it gets it sort of interplaying with this downtrend resistance. But yeah, definitely gets it into this range if that's the case. But, you know, a lot of hopium involved in NTLA, I would say. But biotech, you never know. So I like to have an eye on them. Now here's the other one, CABA, different, right? It's just $2.16. And this is also bio in the biotech space. But you see, again, right? But it has had some periods of like really incredible climbs. And incredible downfalls, right? On this day alone, it went down 73%, right? But then it climbed from 59 cents to $26. I don't see any reverse splits in here. So I'm assuming, unless Webull isn't showing it to me, that didn't happen in that range. But it's all the way down here relatively recently at $1.76. I have this support 196 down to about 135 or so. Payoff zone or resistance 490, right? So like again, like huge potential for gains all the way up to 622 I have. So but again, you know, it would require something pretty significant to come into play, but it is at or just starting to dip into, wick into that zone at the moment. So we'll see what happens here. EMAs wise, yeah, fully bearish as you expect. 183 even situated slightly above the resistance zone at the moment, but that's going to continue to come down, at least seemingly for the time being. But you know, could there be a catalyst around the corner? Could something sort of sweep in to carry this back into the clouds? Maybe. We'll see. But you know, this is where sort of doing another look into like, okay, what is this company actually working on? Where are they? Are they looking for FDA approvals? Or, you know, are they in clinical trials? You know, what's happening? That if it turns out well, it could really just skyrocket the price. Or if it doesn't turn out well, it could really knife the price. So, CABA. So nothing triggering right now in the TTM squeeze indicator, sitting mid-range. This is one where, yeah, it won't go to the -1 ATR because that's negative 202. If it gets above the call trigger, which is all the way up at 328, so a lot of work percentage-wise to get there. It does have a +1 at 656, so that would put it even slightly above where we have this right now. But, you know, like I said, short of some tremendous news coming through, some catalyst pushing that along, it would seem unlikely that it would just move based off of anything else. But, you know, time will tell. We'll see. So that's my look on these 5. You know, if you found any of them interesting, if there's other stocks you'd like me to look at, please let me know. But a little bit different look this time, you know, with just sort of the zones and not a ton of levels. Wanted to try to keep it crisp, clean, and clear, and sort of talk through what I'm looking for each. None of them seem like a slam dunk to me, that's for sure. But it is, I find, often helpful to have just sort of, you know, things to look at, things to consider, because you never know when an opportunity is going to present itself. And if your eyeballs aren't on it, then, you know, you can miss out. And that's going to happen sometimes anyway. So the more you can have your view on different stocks, I think it can be helpful. And also, the more you look at things and see how it plays out over time, the more you sort of learn and sort of understand the way certain trends work or the way your interpretation of things does or does not work. So I think that that's helpful as well. All right, folks, so I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.